Welcome to Tired Mommy Revival. Hey mama, are you running on coffee fumes? Feeling like brain fog, fatigue, and anxiety are running the show? Do you wake up dreading the day ahead, already overwhelmed by the endless to-do list and unsure how you'll make it through? Do you long for the energy to enjoy motherhood and care for yourself, but feel stuck and unsure where to start? Let me remind you of something life-changing. You were created for more energy, more clarity, more joy. Hi, I'm Jerusha, certified holistic wellness coach, wife and mom to 2 wild boys and 1 baby girl in heaven. I know the exhaustion you're feeling because I've been there, barely making it through the day, relying on coffee and chocolate to survive, and wondering why nothing I tried ever made me feel better. Then, God stepped in and revealed a powerful truth. A woman's body is beautifully and uniquely designed to thrive. When we align with how God created us, we can boost our energy, bust through fatigue, and step into the vibrant, joy-filled life He has for us. Mama, I'm living proof that it's possible. These days, I wake up refreshed, nourish my body with intention, and navigate the chaos of motherhood with patience and peace. Most days. And I want to help you do the same. If you're ready to swap exhaustion for energy, brain fog for clarity, and guilt for grace, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into practical strategies, faith-filled truths, and empowering tools to renew your health, body, soul, and spirit. Are you ready for this? Let's do it, mama. If you are a part of this community, if you're joining this podcast, you're probably wondering, why am I so tired all the time? You might have even found yourself Googling answers like causes for extreme fatigue or why am I so tired? And let me tell you, there is a reason for it. When you hear these reasons, I hope that they ring so true to you because the truth is that it's a lot more simple than we often make it. And yet, the struggle in motherhood is so real. And I want to validate that for you today. But I also want to dive into how God created you, the design that He truly has for us, and what we can do to move into that design and into better hope and healing for our bodies, our energy, and our strength in motherhood. Let's dive in. To really understand the depth of our fatigue, we first have to understand the design in which God created us. We are made in body, soul, and spirit. And these 3 parts of us come together and are intricately woven and connected with one another. This is a part of how holistic wellness operates, is that we don't just see the body as a standalone operating part, but we see it connected to who we are as a whole. And when we look at the wholeness of how God created us, there are these 3 parts that come into being. In our spirit, we have a deep need for connection to God. And as moms, it's typically known that we have a greater need for this in our lives. Oftentimes, when I'm talking to a friend and they're also struggling with fatigue and exhaustion, they'll say things like, if I could just get up and read my Bible in the morning before the kids woke up, I'm sure I would feel better. We know on a deep level that connecting with God energizes us. And yet we often struggle to find the motivation or the energy to wake up in the first place. And so we continue in this place of knowing that we are exhausted spiritually. We know we need God's grace, and perhaps we even pray for it often. But we feel stuck in this place where we know that we need more spiritually. We get to church on Sundays. We're glad that we made it there on time. And we're like, yes, we got here. If we were able to catch the entire worship service, it's like a miracle from heaven. And it feels amazing. And we love being in that space, but we also know that in motherhood that there's so much required of us that we need more spiritually too. And yet oftentimes we lose hope that we'll really receive it in the season of motherhood. So it's easy to understand why spiritually we're depleted. In our soul, what we crave, what we were made to have is connection to people. We were made for intimacy and closeness, openness and vulnerability, a connection with other people. We were made to be comforted by others. You know what it's like when you get together with a girlfriend and you're talking about your struggles and she gets you and you feel comforted in your place of struggle. You feel connection, that somebody sees you and they understand you. We are deeply made for connection to people, but in motherhood, sometimes it can be hard to find that. We start off our lives being with our newborns, nursing and sleeping in regular cycles. And we move into toddlerhood. And as they get bigger, even though nap times eventually fade away, and maybe they're not so needy, and maybe we can go out for longer stretches without having big meltdowns, now we just get busy with the things of life. There's activities and a million different places that we're running throughout the week. And motherhood has a way of demanding so much from us that sometimes it's hard to stop and make friendships. In fact, it's hard to find them in the first place, and then keeping them and maintaining their relationship can be even harder, especially when your kids are little and it feels like there's always something that pops up to distract you from getting together with somebody like you had scheduled. And it just seems like walking through mud trying to create and nurture friendships. And so we miss that. We miss that connection to people. But then, even at home, even surrounded by our lovely little children, we still feel weighed down by the mundane because we feel like we're living in Groundhog Day. Do you remember that old movie where that newscaster wakes up and every day he's waking up to the same day over and over again? It's like the same conversation, same people, same everything. And we feel like that. We feel like it's day in and day out, which is on repeat. Laundry, cooking, grocery shopping, vacuuming, attempting to keep your floors clean, even though you know it'll never happen, dealing with meltdowns and cleaning sticky hands. And it just feels like motherhood is wrapped up in what we do and no longer about who we are. And we get stuck in this mundane feeling like we are the cook and the maid and the chauffeur, and we are an answer to everybody's needs and pulls on us. And ultimately, it feels like we are losing a sense of who we are. We're losing our sense of creativity, and we get stuck in the mundane. And ultimately, all of these things lead to our soul feeling depleted. Right now, we're just focusing on understanding what's going on. Lastly, in our body, we usually know on a physical level, we're probably not getting enough sleep. We're probably not eating as well as we need to. And maybe we realize I should be working out. I should. But because we're so lacking the comfort that we need in our life, in our soul, and we're lacking the spiritual motivation and discipline and feeling alive and who we are to operate in our lives well, usually that means that our body suffers too, because instead of waking up early in the morning, we just want to sleep. Instead of fixing the healthy meal that we know that we should eat and that would be good for us, we want to just do what's easy and eat the comfort food and snack on the mac and cheese and chicken nuggets that we made for our kids because we're unmotivated to do the thing that we know that would really help us. And ultimately, we know that physically we're exhausted, but it's important to know that when you Google, why am I so tired all the time, that ultimately Google's never going to give you the answer that you need because your exhaustion is not just physical. It's not just you need a vitamin. It's not just you need to work out. It's not just you need to get a better night's sleep. Those things might be true, but our exhaustion sometimes can extend on such a deeper level in this triune place of how we were created. We're depleted spiritually, in our soul and in our body. And we need to recognize this first and foremost so that we can say, okay, now I fully understand what's going on. Yes, I can recognize the depth of my exhaustion goes deeper than just needing a good night's sleep. Once we recognize how we were made, we first need to recognize that God created our body. God created who we are, body, soul, and spirit, with unique needs. And these needs didn't get up and run away. They didn't disappear when we became a mom. Sometimes we can get trapped in the belief that when we became a mom, our needs no longer mattered. And so we put them on the back burner and we just think it's going to be okay. I can keep going like this because this is what's required of me. And what I'm doing is holy work, and it's true. But yet those needs are still there and they're begging for our attention the longer we ignore them. And this is why we come to a place of being so tired. Now, usually it's very common for us to hear podcasts or blogs or books or speakers talk about what we need spiritually, that we need to get up and read our Bible, that we need to have holy habits that we cultivate, and that we need to make space and room to grow in our spirit, that our spirit man needs to be fed in order to be thriving. It's very common. We're fully aware of that. It's also pretty common for Christians to talk about the needs of our soul too, whether it's stress or our mental health. There's a lot of different resources out there that talk about cultivating those things to help you thrive and feel better. But what's often not talked about in the Christian space is the health of our body. And that is because I believe that the body has been made secular. The thing is that back in Bible times, in Hebrew culture, there was no separation between secular and holy. In the Bible, we don't see a separation of secular and sacred. Everything that they did, the way that they had their being, everything was spiritual. It wasn't, this is of God and this is not of God. This is in the church, so it's sacred, and this is out of the church, so it's secular. It wasn't, this is spiritual and this is unspiritual. Everything that they did from the time they opened their eyes in the morning to the time they laid down their head at night, everything they did and the way that they had their being was spiritual work. Everything was unto the Lord, whether you're making bread or you're out in the field, or if you're making tents like Paul didn't say, when I'm preaching to the people, this is sacred. And when I'm making tents to provide for myself, then this is secular. Everything that he did was holy and unto God. What we get caught up in now is that as a society, we don't have that viewpoint on life anymore. To be honest, you just leave your house, like almost everything is secular. And it's really our job to create and cultivate something sacred in the midst of everything secular around us. Ultimately, the body has been made secular to us. And we see that because the way that the world glorifies the body. Most of the health industry revolves around eating right and working out right so that you can look right. The body is glorified for its visual and sexual appeal. As Christians, we've combated this worldview with an opposing viewpoint that this body doesn't even matter because we're going to leave it behind here on the earth. But the truth is that the fullness of how we're created relies on us operating in God's design. And we're going to have to leave behind the world's design and lean into God's design in order for us to restore our health, body, soul, and spirit, and ultimately to recover the fullness of what God has created us for and the fullness of our energy that we were created to experience. You were absolutely created for more. It is not God's design that we would live in this world defeated and depleted. And I know that to be true because of John 10:10 from the Passion Translation. It says, "But I have come to give you everything in abundance, more than you expect, life in its fullness until you overflow." I believe that to be true. If it's in the Bible, it's truth. I believe that this is true, not with exceptions or rules. Not, I believe I created you for the fullness unless you're a mom, unless you have 3 toddlers at home, unless you're not getting enough sleep. That's not what God created us for. He says that I've come to give you everything in abundance. That means even in motherhood, we were created for an abundance, more than you expect. You may not expect much. You may not expect to wake up and feel amazing tomorrow, but God is saying, I came to give you more than you expect. So start expecting more. Life in its fullness until you overflow. I don't know about you, but sometimes motherhood doesn't feel like an overflow. It feels like a dry and weary desert. The root word of abundant actually means fountain. Jesus came to unlock the fountain of your potential. And I believe that that's true in your spirit. But I also believe that because you are made body, soul, and spirit, and that those things are interconnected and not separable, that the health of your body will improve the health of your soul and your spirit too. We're going to get into that, but let's keep going for a little bit. Our journey really begins in the beginning of motherhood. We start off with the journey of infancy, okay? And a great sacrifice is required from us at that point. We have to give up our sleep and our energy and our body and everything to provide for this newborn, and we're happy to do it. This is our chance to embody sacrificial love in its fullness. We sacrifice everything, and we are so enamored by the love of our child. This is God's idea. Sacrificial love was his idea. He knew that motherhood would demand something from us. He knew that even marriage would demand something from us. And yet he said it was good. God sent his only son to earth to die for us. He knew that sacrificial love would demand something from Jesus. And he said that it was good. This is the epitome of sacrificial love. But what happens is that we start off this journey with our child with sacrificial love. But where we go wrong is that when the corner turns in the road, we don't turn with it. We don't pivot into a new season. We just keep going down this road of sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And we kind of get stuck in this rut. And we allow the enemy to come in and to distort this idea of sacrificial love to the point where it's no longer fully required of us. I dare to say that there comes a point where it's time to start pouring into ourselves again. It's time to start renewing some of the rhythms that keep us alive and going as women in motherhood. And yet we don't make the change because somehow we believe that once we've stepped into sacrificial love, if we pull back in any capacity, then we're being selfish. And ultimately, this is the enemy's lie to distort our view of sacrificial love. We might believe that if we take care of ourselves, that we're not a good mom. We might believe that we're not worthy of being taken care of anymore, worth the effort or the time or the investment that is required for us to pour into ourselves. We're led to believe in some capacity that the needs that God gave us don't exist anymore because now we're mothers. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Because if we weren't supposed to have those needs any longer, then God would have taken them away. Everything in nature acts as it's supposed to. Everything works in balance. If we were supposed to no longer have needs when we became mothers, then those needs would disappear. Our needs, body, soul, and spirit, would slip away and become non-existent. But the truth is that even though we bury them, they're still there. And God, as a good father, is saying to his daughter, I see you. I see you being an excellent mom. I see you reaching the fullest potential of motherhood. I see you loving your children so beautifully. But I did not call you to live defeated and depleted. And in fact, I have more for you. The enemy takes what is sacred and he makes it secular. And so when we look at losing weight, it becomes about vanity instead of being healthy. Eating healthy becomes about fitting in our jeans versus stewarding the body that God made. Working out becomes about being attractive instead of caring for our mental health and operating in clarity and creativity. Cutting back on indulgent foods or even fasting becomes about being an obsession with perfection versus practicing discipline and operating in God's design for our bodies and spirits. If we're going to operate in the fullness we were created for, then we have to allow healthy to be holy as God made it to be. It's important to bring awareness to this because sometimes we have these underlying mindsets that say that if we care for ourselves, then we're being a bad mom. If we spend the money on this supplement, or if we make a meal for ourselves, or if we choose to work out instead of being with our child, then we're a bad mom. And we have to release those things because ultimately filling the needs that God gave us will allow us to be more of who He created us to be. This conversation was so good that I decided to break it up into two sections. So, this is part one of our conversation, and we're going to be back next time for part two. While today we talked about the importance of recognizing our health and how we were created, body, soul, and spirit by God to thrive, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about some of the barriers that come up, some of the blocks that we experience that keep us from true change. We want to experience the fullness of what God has for us. And sometimes there are personal, internal things, and sometimes there are external things that go on that really just keep us in this place of silently suffering in our exhaustion in motherhood. And I want to break those open for you so that we can redeem them and we can find a healthy and productive path forward as we do this together. So come back next week and join me for the rest of this conversation, and it's going to be great. In the meantime, if you can't wait and you need some really practical, tangible steps to walk out right now, then I want you to go down below in the show notes and I want you to grab my freebie, 5 simple ways to build energy as a tired mama. And that is going to give you some really practical advice that you can work on right now. Start with one thing and start implementing it in your day and build consistency in it. And know that it's going to make a big difference and that you are going to build a foundation to better health, better energy, and better strength. Mama, I hope this episode blessed you and reminded you that you were beautifully and uniquely made to thrive. If today's conversation spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to take a moment to leave a rating and review. Not only does it encourage me, but it helps more tired mamas discover the hope, healing, and energy they've been searching for. You're not in this alone. Make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we'll reclaim your energy, renew your health, and revive your spirit, one step at a time. Until next time, remember, you are beautifully designed by God to live with energy, clarity, and joy. You're not just surviving, mama. You're stepping into the vibrant life you were created for. I'm cheering you on.